as I started to learn what the Bible said and sat in teaching about generosity, I started to understand what God really intended about that. Things that everything that we have is God's, and we're stewards.
I started to evaluate it a little more, and I thought that, because I was blessed in this way, and because some people might not have been, let me evaluate my giving again. And I found some more ways to cut back, and I was able to, again, increase my giving a little bit. So I was able to sacrifice just a little more in that way as well.
Well, another holiday season is upon us, and the songwriters say this is the most wonderful time of the year. But let's be honest, the holiday season will be a little different this year. We are living in trying times that have been filled with days of disappointment and delays. As we enter the week of Thanksgiving, it's easy to start to complain and grumble. And while there have been many setbacks along the way, I believe that we have much to be thankful for here at Village Bible Church. Can I take a moment to share a few of them with you? First, I want to say thank you to the team of pastors and ministry leaders that we have. From the beginning of the days of this pandemic, they have stepped up to the plate. Many of them have seen their job descriptions change and ministry models tweaked in order to minister in these new days amidst COVID. During those early shutdowns and stay-at-home orders, we simply didn't just survive, but we thrived. We were blessed to be able to worship together with Village at Home, as well as utilizing technology to stay connected with one another in our small groups. None of these changes and modifications could have been possible without a team that loves God and longs to serve Him well, no matter how difficult it might be. Second, I want to thank so many of you who have rolled with the changes. These days have not been easy for any of you, and yet you've stayed engaged. You've spurred each other on with notes and cards and acts of kindness. You've looked out for each other and have not let the divisions that are dividing our country keep us from experiencing great unity. In these last days, you have been the hands and feet of Jesus to a community around us. Let it be said that when the going got tough, Village Bible Church got going. And I'm so proud to say that the gospel reach of our church has grown exponentially in these last 8 months. And you are a big reason for all of this, so thank you. Now, none of this could be possible if it weren't for the faithful generosity of so many of you. 1 year ago, we took a big step of faith, dreaming about the future and how we might better position ourselves to serve God and our world in these days to come. Not knowing what was before us, we committed an additional $2 million to the gospel work across our campuses for Village Bible Church and the ministry throughout the world. Now let's be honest, we aren't a rich congregation filled with millionaires, and yet God used the humble, obedient faith of so many to make our dream for greater gospel reach a reality. This meant many of you sacrificing and seeking ways to invest in God's kingdom work. Now you have thought that in light of all that we've endured in these last days, that those commitments would have been set aside and left unfulfilled. But I can report that we are right on track with our commitments, and I am blown away with the endurance and commitment of so many of you. As a result, we were able to start the worship center renovations at Sugar Grove and look forward to, God willing, to begin the construction phases at our Aurora and Plano campuses sometime in 2021. So thank you to all who have given over these last months, and never forget that you make a huge impact not only in the Fox Valley area, but also all around the world. While there's much to be positive about, I would be remiss not to speak plainly to you. The COVID pandemic has significantly impacted us from a financial standpoint. This isn't just true of us alone, but it's also seen throughout churches all over the world. While we have seen our all-in commitments fulfilled at a high rate, it's our uncommitted giving that has dropped off significantly. In fact, we are seeing less than 50% of our people involved in giving, which has resulted in our general giving being at 82% of our budget. This means that we are being left short almost $500,000. Now, this impacts us in two key areas. First, it keeps us from moving forward in our all-in initiatives, and it also hampers us from key ministry efforts in the days to come. Second, and most importantly, it keeps many of you from experiencing what it means to live by faith financially. God loves to show up in big ways as we sacrifice and give back to Him out of gratitude for what He has done. So let me encourage you to pause and take some time this week to give God thanks. Over the next few weeks, we're going to embark on a journey where we will hear stories of life change and generosity that will encourage our hearts and grow our gratitude for God. You will hear from people across our campuses about how they have learned in these last days how good and faithful God is, and how trusting Him is the only wise thing to do. Hopefully, this will encourage all of us to take a step in our generosity journeys. Finally, I want to thank God. It's easy at these times to think when things aren't going the way we want to lose our gratitude. And yet let me remind you that God has been so good to us. He has sustained us and protected us from being overwhelmed. He has met our needs and provided the funds for our church to remain on mission while many churches struggle to continue on. In these last days, we've seen God open doors for new harvest fields in the city of Naperville. We're seeing thousands of people engage with our online campus. He's allowed us to enjoy the worship of His people, whether it was in our parking lots or in our worship centers. God has been so good to us, and let us never forget that even if we had none of this, we would still have reason to give thanks because of what He did for us on the cross. So church, I know times are hard and discouraging, but let us never forget that the God who brought us to this place and moment will be the one who will bring us through it all. And we can have hope because while our future is unknown, we can stay assured and rest in a known God. So take heart and recognize and realize, church, that our best days are ahead of us.